This is the CK Nymph. I came up with this pattern in 1961. I was looking for a fly that would imitate a lot of different kinds of nymphs and tying it in different sizes and different colors. I can imitate just about any nymph there is with it. I tied in 8s through 14s. I tied in colors of black, olive, yellow, and gray. And it's been really a good multi-species fly. Brook trout, rainbow browns, bluegills, crappie. It'll catch an occasional bass, but it's not the best bass fly in the world. But it'll catch just about anything. It'll eat a nymph this size. The hook I'm going to use to tie this fly is the R73 Mustad. You can also use a TMCO 5262. If you're going to bead head this fly, you need to step the length up on the hook, so you'd be using the R74 Mustad or the 5263 TMCO hook. Like all my nymphs and streamers, I start off on the front of the hook and I close the hook out with the thread. Then I'll come on back just above the barb. That's where the flat spot ends on these hooks. For tail, I will use wood duck flank feather. You can also use mallard dyed wood duck. The length of the tail I usually use on these flies is half the length of the hook shank. Measure half the length of the hook shank, bring it back here where you stopped your thread. Pull a loop over it, pull it tight, and tack this down real good. Go toward the bend of the hook a little bit, so make sure you cover that whole flat spot with it. I pull the front part of the tail up like this so I can trim it off. I want to trim it off right down against the thread, because it'll be important part of me getting my weight on there right. The next step in this fly is I'm using lead wire 25 thousandths, and I start it right where I cut the front end of the tail material off. Put on there, come forward. Fifteen wraps of 25 thousandths on a size 8 hook. The next material I'm going to use on the CK Nymph is some yarn. This is not 100% wool. This is about 60% synthetic and about 40% wool, and I prefer the yarn with the synthetic in it because it's easier to tie with, and no, that's a lot tougher. So it's going to take just about 9 or 10 inches of yarn for me to tie this comfortably with. On most flies, when you're palmering a hackle on the fly, first thing you do is tie the hackle in. But when you do that, then you wrap your yarn or stuff on there, a lot of times your hackle gets bit off right at the back end of the fly. You come at least 1 or 2 trout sometime will do it. But what I do on my woolly buggers, on my CK nymphs and everything, I put the body material on first. It's like this, come right back to where where I'd wrap the tail in. All right, when I get this yarn tied in all the way back right to the front end of the wood duck feather, I come up here, I leave myself a little flat spot in front of the wood duck. And what I do then, I take the yarn, take about 2 wraps, pretty much right in the same spot. Come over with the thread, and what I'm doing, I'm creating just a little gap in this, in the body material right here. So once I get that done, I'm going to put this saddle hackle. And by the way, you don't need a grade 1 saddle hackle. I prefer the grade 2 saddle hackle because it has a lot of web in it. That's what you want, at least some web in it. Tie that hackle in, then I just come right straight on to the front of the hook. Come over the front of the lid, just a short distance, and I throw a half hitch right there. And the way I tied the yarn in on the back end first, then put the hackle on, when I start wrapping my wool to the front to build the body, I've left a little trough-like right here for the hackle stem to fit in. And that'll keep you from getting bit off by trout or bluegills or anything else. On the body now, I just start coming forward, and I like to taper the body on this fly. Make it kind of a nymph-shaped body, so when I come forward, I'm going to put a couple extra wraps over top of each other right in the middle. As you can see here, it's going to be tapered, and I'm going to taper it again off the front, but the front taper is going to be a little bit thicker than the rear taper on this fly. I come off the end of the lid with the wool yarn. Come over, want to tie that in. Tie that in right there. And trim it. And you look at the body there. It's got a nice nymphy shape to it. Nice taper to it. Again, to make sure everything stays together, I'm going to throw a half hitch right here. Other thing, just take your hackle and make sure the hackle stem goes right down in that little groove that you've created with that gap in the wool. And you start your hackle forward, and on the CK, if it's right, you're going to have 5 wraps of hackle to the front. Not 6 or 7, not 3 or 4. You know, it's going to be 5 wraps. And you want to wrap them evenly. There's 3 right there. 4. And that's 5. When you come off the end of the wool with your hackle, the tendency for most people is just going and tie it off right there. But what I suggest you do is make at least 2 more wraps of hackle on the front end of this. That way you get a little collar on your nymph after you finish and after you trim it. If you don't do this, the fly looks pretty sparse on the front. Simply just tie the hackle in like this. Pull the hackle fibers back. Tack those down pretty good. Grab a stem, pop it forward. And you want to get down all the ends of your hackle, everything. Make sure they're all tacked down. I got one under the. I got one that don't want to cooperate. Got a nice good sized head on your nymph. The next thing to do is, of course, whip finish it. I tie all my flies with white threads because I can see it better, and on this video you'll be able to see it better. So what I do when I get to this point, I've got everything tied on and I got the whip finish on it, and I just take a Sharpie marker, the color I want to use, and like on this one it's black, I just color the thread black. Now all I have to do is trim the fly and put some head cement on it. We've got the CK Nymph tied. Now we need to trim it. The first step in trimming I do, I grab the hackle on top of the fly, and I have the fly turned up like this. I take the scissors and I brace them on my finger so I can get a good straight line. And I come just about halfway between the hook point and the body material. Make my first cut. So you're looking at that. I turn the fly over and I use the cut I just made as a gauge for my top cut. And what we're going to do with this fly, we're going to make it, we're going to square the sides up and we just go around the corners off, just like you trimming a lot of stuff. It works out real good. But while I'm doing this, I'll be brushing these hackles out like this, make sure they go get up there where I can cut them. If this side, I've already got some cut on top, so I can see where those are cut, so I just lay the scissors up there, cut a straight line, trying to get the same length that I had on that side. Next I'm going to come over and do the other side again, using the cuts I've already made, the little short pieces I can see as the gauge to go by. I always take my scissors like this and just kind of brush the hackles. I want them to stand up as much as I can get them to stand up. Look at the end of the fly and see where the longest ones are. It's along right here. I'll slide my scissors in there like that. Make a cut. And I'm just going to go right around the fly, and all the long stuff that's sticking up past my cuts, I'm going to trim down. I'm going to try to trim it down even. But you really don't ever want to start this thing. You really don't ever want to start this fly, trimming this fly in one spot and try to go around it. You need to really, like I say, kind of square it up, then cut the corners off. And it'll work a lot better for you. Just a couple more to go. And this is the most time-consuming part of this fly, really, is getting it cut and getting it cut right. So have a little patience with it, and it'll pay off for you, because this is a great fly. I came up with this pattern in 1961, and it's been Been a top fish getter since that time. One little cut is pretty close to done. So again, I just turn it over and look right down the end of it. Look for the really long stuff that's sticking there past the cuts I've already made. And once I get the little tips of that trimmed off, this slide's gonna be finished. So there you go. This is the CK Nymph before the last step of trimming. This is the CK Nymph after it's trimmed, which is very important to have it trimmed. It looks like, depending on what size you tie it in, what color you tie it in, it imitates a lot of insect larvae. So there they are right there.